killed on this porch by a drunk driver that ran into the porch. But I rubbed elbows working there, and people who, some people I'm sure who voted against me because they didn't know me, and they associated me with people that they didn't support, they got to know me and saw me as somebody who cares for people, who cares for has certain kind of values. So really important at the local level as you're trying to engage people, to get them to listen to you and you to hear what they're saying, is building levels of trust and cooperation so they hear rather than just stereotype you and close you out. And you do that in as many ways as you can. With the internet now, if you know email addresses, you can try to contact people that way, but also with the websites, people can learn about you. But trying to reach across more than one group, being involved in several groups that are diverse. Now, one of the groups you don't want to be in is the criminal group, right? Because people tend to close you out right away. But maybe you go to church, maybe you go to, probably you're too busy for this, and most of you probably aren't rich enough yet for this, but people go to Rotary, or they're in various fraternal organizations. So be involved in more than one thing so you have chances to get to know people, and they get to know you, and you dialogue with them. And then you encourage them, like with me on city council, I meet somebody and I say, now if you have any issues that you think the city is not addressing that we should, please call me or email me, and I give them my card, anytime. For some reason, even though we encourage that, at least we say we do in Littleton, very few people call or email. But as I go out and meet people, that's part of what I'm trying to get to do. How many of you have emailed a congressman or state rep or whatever? Do they get back to you?
Form letter back to me. So then when I take the form letter, I just send it back to them and say, thanks for the form reply, here's my form reply. Then they send me another one, so I send them another one.
It's pretty discouraging.
So I do it about 6 or 7 times just to make the point that this is ridiculous. Why are you doing this?
And we know they're busy and all that, but it feels insulting, right?
It is.
So when I reply to people that email me, some of them have replied back and couldn't believe that I was responding to them. Not only, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, this is the English teacher, I guess, coming out at me, but figure if somebody cares enough to contact me, I ought to care enough to respond in a way that indicates I've really listened to what they had to say. So, anyway, that's enough for me. I want to hear what questions you have, and my husband, as you probably guessed, teaches political science. But you wouldn't know at Metro, because I don't think Dr. Kahn mentioned that. But he can jump in here just as easily as I can.
She's describing a case of what should be, what the normative. The problem was in Littleton, it wasn't what she was describing. It's very, very important. That's why she's elected. Okay? The city council did not listen to the public. That was prima facie. They set about a set of activities that were designed by, call it a clique or a group, or what we might call an elite power structure in an organization or government. And they went about their merry way. And it's very interesting that she mentioned this case of a Walmart, which is one of these huge stores. They're going to have a 24-hour store, whatever. That's good, bad, or indifferent. Part of the reason why communities need Walmarts is, they claim, because of taxing, to raise tax-based sales taxes or whatever. Littleton's problem is landlocked, therefore it can't expand into other areas and increase their tax revenues. So it's a real tricky issue, which gets to the whole thing of development. But the decision that was made to bring in this Walmart was basically done without the consent of the public. And what was extremely fascinating, and something I should try to find it and you can see it, is the city council behaved as a censor of the public. People who came, Peggy's talked about speaking before the council, they were gavelled into silence. The mayor of the city had his gavel, you had 2 minutes to speak, go bang, 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 bang. And she, 3.
Yeah, and and a lot of that is on here. And I think I put in here the statement, he said, come on, hurry, we have to get through this so we can vote. Well, it's telling you, at least some of those people already had their mind made up, and the vote was 4-3. So, it wasn't everybody, but it was a majority, and really important. And the leadership of Littleton had been the same for 10, 20 years. You sort of start here and then on a board or commission, then you became a council person for several years and so forth. You might become mayor. Our mayor is elected. We have 7 city council people, and the city council elects it's 7, it elects the mayor. But you had the same people generally in the majority on council, and every now and again there'd be minority elected, but the minority was always defeated in 5-2 votes or occasionally a 4-3 vote or whatever. And when people got interested in the Walmart issue, then they saw for themselves how the citizens were being treated. And, that's one way I got elected, because I wasn't associated with the people that approved the Walmart. And as it tells you on the sheet, the citizens got petitions and then had an election and reversed the Walmart rezoning decision.
The vote, they had to have a vote in the community. It was over 60% of the public that voted against this sort of Walmart. I use the word Walmart, but it was really interesting. 60% of the population that voted was against this whole idea. And what happened then is when they had their regular council election, guess what? Those same people voted, and they switched this overall mix of majority from a 5-2 one way, it went 5-2 another way. It's an incredible example of public participation and acting to change a form of governance.
Exactly. Well, Brian, I think you had your hand up. I think there's a
I'm
question.
not very familiar with how the city council process works. I mean, how much does, you said that one of the reasons you got into the city council was because you were retired and had more time on your hands. So I wonder why people are incentivized to join the city council, how that impacts the decisions they make, and what type of diversity that leads to. For example, are people getting compensated for the work they do on the city council in terms of money?
Not a whole hell of a lot. I think I get just over $10,000 a year. And I put in, depending on the week, 20 to 30 hours a week. I wouldn't have to put in that much, but because I knew whenever any issue of any substance comes forth, it requires a lot of background understanding just to get to the playing field, and then how we're deciding. Like in setting sewer tap fees, which you'd think would be real easy to do, but you have to get in and figure out how in the world is somebody calculating what's being recommended for tap fees, and user rates for sewers, and water tap fees, and whether or not to hire a backup ambulance service or not, and things like that. But I'm liaison to several boards and commissions, each of the council people is, and I go to other related activities. So I could probably get away with doing a little bit less than 20 hours a week, but you don't get rich doing this.
So clearly that rules out a large percentage of the population that might be interested in participating in the city council.
Yeah. Either that, or maybe you don't have children, or your children are old enough that you can devote time to study at night and so forth on issues that come up.
Do you think that leads well to diversity in the city council?
Say again?
Does that situation whereby, you know, only people who are able to, you know, have a lot of free time, don't have to worry about money, does that lead to diversity within the council?
Well, it's an interesting kind of thing. Our council tends to be somewhat old. I'm one of the, let's see, I think there are 2 or 3 out of the 7 who are older than I am. So tend to be older, but not necessarily. But we don't have any racial diversity. Littleton's not very racially diverse right now. We do have an influx of Hispanic people coming, and we have a really very good program to try to help people learn English as a second language and tutor people, mentor people so that they can pass their citizenship test. So I think we're in the 4th year of this program that's doing this mentoring. And I'm hoping that through that then, we're going to start seeing more people get involved in boards and commissions, because most people don't do what I did. I think I'm one of the few people that came sort of without any previous city experience on a board or a commission or some involvement like that, and become elected to city council. Our mayor is 52. And he and his wife made the decision several years ago, about 10 years ago, so he was about 42 then, that he was going to run for city council. She's a nursing supervisor at a hospital, so she's not poorly paid, not rich, but not poorly paid. But they also had, at that time, daughters who were about probably at that time about 6 or 7, 8 years old. And so he sort of became a house dad, did some consulting work as a computer person on the side, but got elected to city council, sort of looked after the children, and the wife's bringing in the major part of the income. Now he's mayor, he gets, I think, $17,000, but again, that's not gonna rock anybody's socks off either.
Do you see that as a problem, that maybe it's not representative of the population in terms of, you know, age diversity may be the case because of...
No, what I see the need as, this is really important to appreciate this. If you truly do listen to the citizens that come to speak, and they can speak during unscheduled citizens appearance, or they can even get a scheduled appearance. I mean, there's not a censorship on that, but they get 10 minutes to speak if they schedule an appearance. So they may have a longer issue to talk, a more complex issue. If we listen to the people and fairly weigh what they're telling us, I don't think it matters to them, at least to the people that have talked to me of various ages, of quite a broad range. Doesn't matter, in terms of what you're saying. It matters, do the people on council listen and weigh and proceed that way. It'd be almost as though, you just got blinders on and you can hear what people say, but if you're being fair with it, so far, and I don't know, Jim bumps into people on the train every now and again, and they say, aren't you married to Peggy Cole? And so far they've been nice in their comments to him, but I suspect, I have had some email from people that didn't know how I voted on an issue and just lambasted the whole council for some vote, but they hadn't paid attention to who voted how. So I respond as politely as I can, whatever. But I think, I mean, and what matters to me more as a citizen is somebody listening, not sending this darn form letter back that hasn't really heard what you said, right?
But it's an interesting process because you've got to get more people involved in the communities, and people do work. And if people are working, I mean, I teach down at Metro, and we have students there who are taking full, it was 15 credit courses as an undergraduates. They're working 35, 40 hours a week. They don't even have time to go to the library, if they can find it. You're seeing people, especially in this economic climate today, working 2 and 3 jobs. It's very, very difficult for them to take time to go to meetings, to sit in the city council and listen, or to become informed on those. And it's the old Aristotle talks about politics as being, it's for the leisure class, really. You need time, and it's extremely hard. My background is New England small-town democracies where everybody was involved, but you still had to have a certain group of people who could afford the time to do this or get involved. And it's very, very difficult. At what point in a day can you have someone come show up at a meeting? What time do your meetings start on Tuesday nights?
Except for one Tuesday in the month, they start at 7. We have 2 regular council meetings twice a month and 2 special sessions where we study topics that may or may not then go on to the regular meeting for formal action and so forth. And they may last anywhere from 2 to 3.5. I think the most we've had is just shy of 4 hours for a meeting. But if you have a spouse and children and a demanding job, it's just a time issue, which is why I said on the sheet about myself, how could I ever ask anybody else to run if here I was retired and some people were encouraging me to run? I wasn't seeking this out. After 36 years of teaching at ACC and 2 years in Maryland teaching full-time in grad school and all that, maybe it's time to just play. But then I thought, how can I ever ask anybody else to run if I've got the time, I'm interested in the issues, and I say no? But because of that decision and because of what I believe in, I try to be as totally open and fair in hearing the issues as I can. It's a huge responsibility.
One of the interesting things, excuse me, go ahead.
I just had one question. How do you form your decisions just as a council person? Particularly, how do you form them where you may disagree with the majority of your constituents?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go through the process?
You mean how? I don't know that I've disagreed with the majority of people that have at least let me know what they think on an issue.
Mm.
The tougher part is disagreeing with other council people. And it's real interesting. In Colorado, we have open meetings, open records laws, and so forth. So we are not allowed to meet with more than one council person to talk about how we might vote on an issue coming before us. So the closest you can get to seeing whether you may get shot out of the water if you wanted to bring something before council is to say, as I did on something last Tuesday. It's a simple little thing, but our current city code allows people 5 years to cash a city-issued check, whether it's for a tax refund or whatever it is. But it means each year when we audit the books, somebody's got to be tracking these uncashed checks, and the finance department has to keep trying to contact people to get them to cash the check. And I'm on the audit subcommittee for council, and when we got the auditor's report, preliminary report given to us during the summer, and she's pointing this out. And so I thought a few weeks ago, why in the world don't we just change this? So I asked the mayor about it, ran it past him, what did he think? That was fair enough. But I can't ask other people, well, will you vote for this? I can't do that. That's against the law. I suspect some people violate the law, but I don't want to. So he said, why don't you just let people know you're thinking to bring this idea forth? Then, you know, you'll know whether or not they have issues. And so then I did that, and some people thought, well, maybe, you know, we should go down to 6 months, and a couple thought, well, maybe we should only go to a year. But whatever, at least I heard, you know, some issues, right? But if you don't do that, if you don't have some sense of how the other council people orient themselves on issues, you have to sit there and hear this discussion really fast and process it. And if it's anything to do with ordinances, we have to have a public hearing. So people then come and speak. They get up to 3 minutes to speak each. And so you have to process all that really fast. And really important that we let people know what issues are coming before us so that they have a chance to come to the public hearing. That was something else the former council wasn't doing, giving adequate notice on some of these things, posting agendas online so people would know what the issues were. If they couldn't come to the meeting, they could email or call us. So right now, the only thing that I've gotten in the crosshairs on has nothing to do with the citizens of Littleton, but with citizens who don't live in Littleton, people who don't live in Littleton proper, for whom our wastewater treatment plant provides service. And I think all the council got the same thing, over 100 emails from people, because the mayor had proposed, so that was what was coming before us, to raise the user fees for the people who didn't live in the city more. Well, they weren't going to raise them in the city at all, and these people got raised, I think it's 20%. It was like $12 or something, but when you attach a percent to it, you know, it sounds a lot bigger. And we got deluged with that. That's the only thing that I've gotten any hostility to that to speak of. So, and that's not exactly what you asked, but I needed to.
But these people you charge, do they vote? Or they don't vote for.
They don't vote for council.
So it's like taxation without representation.
They belong to. There are 2 or 3 different water districts, and that's what the people who were in charge of their water districts sent, you know, oversized cards, you know, like the half-page size cards out saying they're raising your rates 20%. Didn't tell them $12 a year, $1 a month. 20%. They're not raising the in-city at all. This is what they're proposing, and it's taxation without representation. Now, each of those districts signed a contract with the city to provide that service for their district. We didn't say you have to do this. And one of those districts had not even been receiving service for a year. So a little over a year before they signed the contract, then they're giving us the right to establish the rates and so forth. And then they're saying, well, you know, you're doing this. Well, why'd you join this if you didn't want us to have this right to do it? Now, it was real interesting. I did vote against raising theirs so much. I wanted to phase in the raise, and I also wanted to raise ours a little, because we could see gas costs were going up. That means that all the fuel that's involved in and transporting the sludge and so forth from the wastewater plant out to some farmland 40 miles, away, that's driving up costs significantly. So not all the citizens were thrilled, that I was voting against that, but I got defeated. It was a 4-3 vote, and I was in the minority on that. But it's my belief, again, I cannot say it loud enough, is that city governments have to try to keep the residents informed of what's coming before city council, so they can give input and try to make their best case and not just name call and so forth. That goes back to my saying people need critical thinking skills. Help people understand their arguments, the rationale for why they believe this or that.
What's interesting in this case is you get to see at the level Peggy's, they're talking about wastewater treatment. It's a sewage kind of issue, This isn't, some, huge burning kind of political kind of thing where you all get excited about. It's about flushing toilets. And is there an equity in terms of the fees coming down the line? And in this case, which she's not explaining to you, is the municipalities in the area got together and spent a fortune on a new municipal sewer plant. Okay, they need to raise revenue to pay for the silly thing. And what happens is the projections of growth, meaning people building new homes that can pay for this, were too high. They haven't reached that growth level, so the people in Littleton are stuck with paying the bill.
Well,
Part of it.
It's a little more complicated. We had to upgrade because of some of the federal requirements. So we had to upgrade. We didn't have to expand. But we already were serving some of these water districts, sewer districts, and they argued that we needed to expand because they were expecting growth. So in part then, we undertake this huge expansion, but we started the planning for it, and you're required to by federal government, federal regulation, when your capacity at your sewer treatment plant reaches a certain level, then you have to go into gear for planning. And just about the time that we started experiencing the major drought that who knows if we've really gotten out of yet, they had to make the decision, do we go ahead with the expansion or not? And a former council voted to go ahead with the expansion. This was about 5 years ago. And then we hit the drought, and what did people do? They started getting very efficient toilets. Some even probably are now in another stage of even more efficient toilet. They started having more efficient watering systems for their yards, or letting their yards turn to weeds or whatever. Not taking baths, I'm teasing, but getting much more efficient washing machines and other water appliances and so forth. So here we have this huge debt. Littleton and Englewood have a joint water treatment facility, and we are responsible roughly, each of us, for half of the cost of the facility. And the facility is just now being totally finished, just now, after this 5-year expansion build, and we have to pay off this debt. Well, you're going to have to pay it off somehow. And one view is that new growth should be paying for the cost of this facility. On the other hand, a lot of people are getting older, and they're on limited incomes, and heaven help us. Some people don't have any income now after what in the world's happening with the economy, retired folks and whatever. So really difficult decisions. How do you pay, a couple $100 million debt with 41,000 people? Well, our half of that, 100 million or something. How do you pay for that with 41,000 citizens and your sewer districts that way outnumber us. They have a higher population density than we do, which is what led to this increase in fees for them and not for us. But I still wanted to phase it in, and so it's a huge issue, and it will come up again every year because the fees are set once a year. So anyway, I sidetracked big time, but thank you for clarifying what you did, which let me clarify more.
Well, this is a course in economics.
And I'm
so
going
Yes, it's
this
very
is-
economic.
I am going to pass around too something. I mentioned one person that's on this thing in my little bulleted thing, but a man that's created this thing called the Pub. But there's another person mentioned on here. This is a fairly recent article from Denver Post. I think it's the Post, but wherever. And another thing people have to do, and you saw it in the elections, if you maybe if you saw any of the literature and the TV ads, people allege something. Right? I mean, so I'm just going to allege that you have tuberculosis. Now everybody's going to spread around, right? Move away. Well, I can say that, but you don't elect her. She's got tuberculosis, and she's going to, be bad role model here. Well, what would you want to do if you heard somebody say that?
Find out if it's true.
Yeah, I mean, and you would know probably whether it's true about you, right? But find out if it's true. We saw all kinds of allegations about things. Well, I told you that some people in Littleton want to have a lot of high-rise, high-density infill with condos and so forth. So this one man that's mentioned, the first one on that sheet I'm just giving you, Jack Randall, went out to Belmar, which is northwest in the metro area, where they were doing a lot of this, but the idea was, hey, we'll have a lot of high-rise, high-density infill, which will bring children also to Littleton, and just as a lot of the metro areas experiencing problems having enough students to fill their schools, Littleton is too. And so here's this allegation, well, we'll bring in these people, more children, more this, et cetera, et cetera. He went out to Belmar, and what he talks about is quoted in here, there wasn't a single child in these condos and multifamily units that were built. So you want, really important to check whether or not what people are alleging is true as you make decisions. Anyway, I have a feeling we way overshot our time here.
No, it's okay. Let me just see if there are other questions. Any questions or comments?
And I didn't mean to shut anybody down, so if you heard me respond to anybody where's your writing utensil? If you wanted to follow up on anything, or you think maybe I didn't answer something convincingly and you have other arguments, please feel free to contact me.
And what we could do is they televise the Littleton City Council hearings, so we can give you the website or the channel and go listen. It's very interesting.
Right?
Yeah, that's
I'm down to check my email card.
And what they've done is you can watch it live, the council meetings. They've also done their planning commission meetings, which are important for, kinds of issues in terms of building development. And then they're archived on the web, so you can go in and watch them when you have leisure. When you get the kids put to bed or whatever.
But I think I put on my one sheet that I spoke at city council, I think 7 or 8 times last year before I decided to run for election. And I mean, again, I spoke not because I was even thinking about running, but just on issues. And I asked them to improve their website, because I'd go on and I'd look for something called legislative procedures. They referred to it frequently, and I could never find it using a search engine. Well, it's because they hadn't coded it right in the search engine, but I didn't know that at the time, because it was there, but anyway, and I said, you know, when you have a public hearing, you ought to have on the agenda that people get when they come to the meeting, you should have what the rules are, so people know beforehand, before they get down there at the podium or show up that night, that they only have 3 minutes to speak in a public hearing. People would come, I saw this with Walmart and some other public hearings last year, they'd come with 3 or 4 typed pages thinking